Hi everyone, I'm Oliver from Blendtuts.com, and it was time to do something a little exciting, and I just found a thread at blenderartist.org. A guy called Michalis, you can look for him on the forums, shared with all of us a technique to create something similar to what you're watching in this video. He called that technique Uvs and Displacement Sculpt. The reason for that name is that we use a displacement texture to sculpt a lot of detail into a surface, and then we play with the UVs to give some variation to the displacement. Here we are watching some of his tests using this technique. You can have a look to the Blender Artist thread on the link below this video at blentuts.com. There you will also find the 32-bit displacement texture used in this tutorial, also created by Michalis, who generously shared it on the forums. So in this tutorial we'll create this kind of alien spaceship using this technique. I'll show you how to bake and use displacement texture, how to create and make the UVs of the model, add materials to it, light the scene, and do some crazy compositing to build the final render. Thanks a lot, Michalis, for sharing with us this technique and for allowing me to create this tutorial using it. Let's go for it. So first, I'm gonna show you how displacement maps work, so you can learn how to extract the displacement maps and how to use them correctly, and then we'll get into the more complex stuff. So I'm gonna make it very simple so you can just learn how to use them. Just create a plane, and now just a couple of cubes, and to this cube I'm gonna apply a bevel modifier, right, just to have some beveling like this, and do something like this. Okay, just something quick, something really quick. Scale these ones a little. Alright, and I think that this is pretty much enough for this explanation. Now I'm gonna duplicate this one, because this one is the one that we are gonna use for baking the displacement map. If you want to learn more about how to bake maps, normal maps, displacement, ambient occlusion, whatever, you can check my tutorial on that subject into my webpage. Otherwise, in this one I'm just going to explain the very basic things about it. So first I open here a new image editor, I enter into the edit mode, press U, unwrap, and here we have the unwrap model. Now just go here, call this one Displacement Texture. Right, I don't want alpha channel, and okay. So now here we have a new map that we can bake our displacement into. So get outside of the edit mode and just select all these objects, right? Don't select the camera and the light, right? Just that objects, and I need the last one, the plane in which we want to bake the texture to be the active object. How do we do that? The active object is always the last one that we select, so just click on it again and it will become lighter orange. All right, this is what we need. If you want another one to be the active one, just select another one. And if you want to deselect it, you should click twice, okay? So this is the active object. So let's go into the render panel. And here in the bottom, we have the bake option. This bake option, we just click on selected to active. So all the selected objects are baked to the active one, and press bake. And this is not what I expected. Right, I mean, this is not what I wanted. All right, I let activated here the full render, and you can see that what it baked was the lighting with the shadows and everything. But what we want is to bake the displacement. All right, so press bake again, and we have this. So what is this? This is a grayscale texture, which is the displacement, and the lighter the pixels are, the more height there is in that part of the model. So you can see these parts here of the big cubes are higher than the smaller cubes. So here they are lighter. Also, the plane is the one that is more to the bottom, so it's darker. All right. This, the tone of this, the value of these pixels will tell the model how it needs to be displaced. And now I'm gonna show you how this happens. So press M, change this model to another layer, and now press 2, so we can only see the plane, right? We don't want to see these models here, right? If you are wondering, you can change the layers here, but if you press the number that corresponds to the number of the layer, you can also hide and show, or pressing Shift in the meanwhile, you can add or rest layers to the viewport. All right, so now I just want to see the layer number 2. All right, so what I want to do now is to apply this displacement map to this model. All right, displacement works displacing actual polygons, so we need this face to be really subdivided. All right, we are gonna do that later. So first I'm gonna go here and add a modifier which will be displace. Right, now create here new texture, and here in the texture name let's call it displacement. Right, so let's go now here to the textures, and here I just want to go to the displacement, and we need to set this one up. Select image or movie, and here we are going to select the displacement texture, which is the one that we just baked. Right, here we have it. Now we go back to the displacement, and what we need now, so the displacement has its correct effect, is to add some subdivisions to this model. So let's add a subdivision surface modifier, put it on top of the displace, so the subdivision surface adds before the displacement, and we can just increase the subdivisions. Here you have how it's starting to be displayed, but we don't need it to be smooth. All right, because this one smooths the result of the subdivisions. What we need is to create it with a simple subdivision. All right, and now we can increase a little, and you can see that we have almost the effect of the original objects. All right, if we switch from layers, you can see that this is the original objects, and this is the one playing with the displacement. So as you can see, the shape is pretty much the same. If you look at it from the distance, right, it's pretty much the same. So this is what we want to achieve. All right, so we have this, and instead of have here 6 subdivisions, that if we reach the 6 subdivisions, the scene will be probably really complex, and it's just that Blender doesn't like 6 subdivisions or more. Right, maybe 6 is okay, but more than 6, you can see that it doesn't allow me already to set up more than 6. So what we need to do instead of 6 is just by stopping at 5, for example, enter in the edit mode and subdivide it here manually. All right, and even subdivide it again. This way we will have much more detail, and we just have 5 subdivisions here. All right, so this is the basic. We already know how to apply displacement, and now we are gonna be using it into the complex stuff. We are gonna create our model, and we are gonna learn how to use the displacement map. But the displacement map that we are finally going to use in the final spaceship, because it's some kind of a spaceship, is not this one, or is not a simple one. Right, it's a really complex one. Let me just show you. Is this one. This one was made by Michalis, which is the creator of this technique, and he really modeled all this stuff into a panel and baked this displacement map. This is the one that we are gonna use, and of course you can create this kind of maps with Photoshop or GIMP, but it's recommended to do it in Blender or in another 3D software, so you get exactly the height of the real objects, because otherwise it's a bit difficult to control the grayscale. But you can, of course, you can do it. This is a really complex model, so I don't want to waste time just modeling these little things and all that, because you can do it yourself, or you can take this map from the thread at blenderartists.org of this technique, because Michalis shared it there. And we're gonna just go to the model and start doing the stuff with this texture. Okay, so we will create a torus, right? Of course, we could create any model that we wanted, but I want to keep the model simple because I just want to show you the technique. So I'm gonna use a torus. So let's control a little bit this torus, because for this technique we need the faces to be almost squared. Right now it's pretty cool, but we have too much faces. All right, I want to have less faces, so then it's more easy to control, right? Something like this probably, and minus segments, right? Maybe a little more here. Let's first increase a little this stuff like this to make it more solid. Oh, it aligns to the view. Okay, there we go. Right, something like this probably. Let's take a look at the segments. Like this is better. Yeah, I think this is good enough. Okay. Alright, so we already have our torus. And now we need to apply the displacement texture to it. We are not going to apply the displacement yet, with just the texture, and we are gonna work on the texture. Alright. So let's create here a UV image editor. Let's go into the edit mode and just add here the texture. Right, here we go. And what we need to do is to first go here, display. Here we have multi-texture. We need to activate here texture solid, so we see the texture at this point. All right, and what we need to do is to press U and reset. The reason why we press reset is because every polygon occupies the whole texture, right? So if we get closer to the model, you will see that each polygon is taking the whole texture. All right, and this is exactly what we need, right? As you can see, if I pick this polygon, for example, it takes the whole texture, right? This is what we want right now. And what we should do right here, just add a little variation to this. So we can just pick this whole polygon and rotate it 90 degrees, for example. Okay, so now this one is different. We can pick these two polygons and take, for example, the follow active quads, because follow active quads, it's very cool, because even length or even options, it's very nice because it just creates a planar version of the polygons, and it's very easy to control, right? So we can do something like this, right? And just pick the part of the texture that we want to pick, right? Even if you want even to play with this and distort it a little, you can do it. Not much, because otherwise it will be very noticeable, but it's cool. And I'm gonna show you here what I told you about follow active quads. This is an option that I use a lot. As you can see, this makes all this rounded shape planar. So now we can just scale it, get it here, and let's take, for example, this 90-degree rotation. And if we put it here, you can see that we got a pretty much rounded shape right there, right? It was something bigger in this case, but as you can see, we can play with that stuff. Okay, even we can do it right here. Follow active quads, okay. In this case, the length or the even options are pretty much the same, because all the polygons that we are selecting are pretty much very similar. Well, they are not similar, they are just the same size and everything, so the difference won't be very noticeable. But if you have very different polygons, probably you will see much more difference into them. Right, so just do something like that. Okay, and now as you can see, all these faces are just exactly the same. So what I want to do is to just scale some of them, right, and pick, for example, displace. Right, so it picks this big detail right here, and add some big shapes like that into some areas just to give it more variation, because otherwise when we apply the displacement, it will look the same in the whole spaceship. So this way we'll add some variation to it and it will be more natural. Let's go right here, follow active quads. Now another thing to keep in mind is that if we rotate it like this, for example, you can see that we get diagonal shapes, and this is not what we are looking for, because as the subdivisions will be perpendicular, if we do something like that, the cuts will be a little jaggy, alright? So this way is more easy to control. Something like that. Now this one, you can even pick some of them and make them bigger, so it takes the texture more than once, but I prefer to make them smaller like this, and just pick different parts of the texture. Just by rotating. Remember that you can rotate UVs like this by selecting everything with A, and it will select everything that you have selected in the viewport on the UVs. And if you press R and write down the numbers like 90, for example, you already get the rotation. So it's very fast to make that kind of changes. Now this bottom part here, well, I'm gonna play a little with this. Let's pick that ones. Follow active quads. Oh. That was because as you can see, I made this, right? So follow active quads picks the UVs that it will generate in the active quad. In this case, the active quad is unselected, so it's not useful at all. So I need to pick the active quad as 1 into the selection. All right, so now follow active quads and it's okay. So we have something like that. This is okay. All right. Also here we could already apply some subdivision to see more or less what we are doing, like this, something like this. So you get a more or less an idea of what you are going to take. Here, for example, you can notice that we have a lot of repetition, all right? So it's good to take some of these polygons and just arrange them. There's something here that I'm going to show you, that you can go here to rotate UVs and pick clockwise, for example, and you automatically rotate them 90 degrees. You do this by selecting the polygon, press Ctrl F, which shows up the menu of the faces, and in rotate UVs you can check here the option that you want and it will be rotated. Right, now this one, I just want to have more visibility there. Right, so this one I'm going to scale it a little, this one scale it a little, also rotate it 90 degrees. Pick this one, This one will be completely like this. Okay, so as you can see, we are achieving less repetition. Remember that if you go out of the texture in one of the sides, it will show this part in the other side of the texture, right? Because internally the Blender is repeating this texture over and over again, right? So it will be repeated. So no problem if you go out of the UV space. You need to keep that in mind if you are working probably for some kind of game engine or something that uses UV spaces or whatever, but here to use in Blender you don't need to worry about that. So I'm going to speed up a little this process, and I'm going to play a little more with this, so to rest it some variation. Alright? So here, if you noticed, I'm doing well. Just press Control Space to hide the manipulators. I can select a lot of ones like this, for example, to give them more variation. Even this one also, all these ones. Okay, and what I do is probably to take them, press Reset. So all of them are taking the whole texture. What I do is scale them down. Okay, and now I go one by one, and just in the UV editor, just press G to grab and displace them to random sides, random sections of the texture. This way I make sure that they are taking different parts of the texture and they look a little different and not all similar. Then I can take some of them and just rotate them 90 degrees so they are absolutely different. Right, like this one, for example. And this way we get more difference into the, more variance into the texture. So let me just a couple of minutes more because I think we have already enough variation. So I don't want also to waste a lot of time into this exercise, because, well, once you know how to do it, it's just a matter of keep spending time until you get exactly what you want it to look like. Right, so we can just do something like that. Move it and rotate them. Just basically move them and rotate it until you get the what you want exactly. Other thing that you can do to add some detail is do something like this. You select a few faces, right? Press dot in the numpad keyboard to just focus the view on that part that you have selected. And what you can do probably is extrude, all right, and play with this. So as you can see, you get there some interesting shapes, but I don't want to do that right now. Just as a detail, something like that, for example. I can actually make it at some point like this, just to give it a little interesting shape there. Maybe we can change what this one is showing up. That even something like this. Okay. Now this one, I just wanted to get something different. Right, these three are taking the same part of the texture. Well, not these three, also these ones and all these ones. Right, as you can see, it's a matter of time to spend here just getting all of them a little different. Right, so just scale them a little down. Now just go ahead and rotate some of them. If you press minus, while you press 90 here when rotating, you will get the exactly the opposite, like a minus 90 degree. Now just move them a little. Here we can also move them. Even here, if you have these similar ones and you want to break the pattern, you can just go ahead, select this one and move it a little like this, and you just break it. Like this. Alright, so we have more or less the stuff done. Now we're gonna apply, let's just watch it. Alright, as you can see, there are a lot of faces still similar around here. This is a pretty tedious process, but for sure once you get it, if the more time you spend in this part of the process, the better the displacement will like later, because otherwise it looks like very unnatural when it's repeating over and over again the same texture. Right, so here anyway, I'm gonna then, as this is a static image, I'm gonna rotate it to see the part that has less repetitions on it, like something like this. Okay, because this is pretty, you know, this one for example, just a little like this. And yeah, this part is looking pretty good, so I'm gonna pick this part probably. Alright, but first, before I'm gonna save this, so let's put it on 2. Okay, and now we're gonna see how to apply the displacement. We need to see better this part here. Alright, and just go here and apply a displace modifier. As we can see, it's not exactly what we expected. Alright, so we need to press here new, right? And this is pretty crappy, but we want to solve it, don't worry. And we need to pick the texture, right? Let's call it displace. Alright, now instead of clouds we need to be image or movie, and on this one just pick displacement low. Notice that I'm taking it from here from the list because I already have it loaded on Blender. If you didn't load it on Blender yet, what you need to do is to go here and take it open and open it from your hard drive. Alright, so pick it like this. Alright, now let me just check this. Okay, this is the displacement texture. So we need to go here, and the first thing we need to do is to, instead of local, right, this is the texture coordinates, we need to put the UV. So it takes the changes we made here on the UVs. All right, now let's give here, let's put this on simple, right? Catmull Clark. Let's deactivate this first of all. Right, so if here we put this on simple, let's put this a little more big, we will get this polygonal-like shape. Alright, so what I like to do is to just put Catmull Clark, alright, for the first 2 or 3 subdivisions, and then add another modifier, which will be after the first subdivision and before the displacement one, alright, but this one is on simple. Alright, so this way we can get here a few more displacement. Be careful here, but if you go too crazy with this with these settings, you can crash Blender or it will perform very slowly. Alright, so be careful before you just use this. Alright, and we can see that we have a perfect, wow, just perfect. I'm gonna render this one and tutorial done. Right, now seriously. Let's change, we need to change the settings here until we find the way. Let's put the strand on 0.1, and we can see that we have more or less something similar to what we want. Just decrease this, right, probably something like this. Strand a little more, no, a little less. Let's try with 0.05. Okay, this is very little, so instead 0.07. Alright. So I think this one is good. What we can do here is to just, you know, instead of going too crazy here in the viewport, what we can do, in fact, is to decrease it on the viewport. Right, so it goes very smoothly on the viewport, and we don't need so many detail on the viewport. What we can do is to increase it on the render time. Right, so let's save it again, 0.3, and let's place the camera something around here. Let's, something like this, for example. And just center it. Alright, something like that. Okay, we have it. So now let's take a render and see what it looks like. Pa-pa-pum. As you can see, it's taking quite a few time. This is because we have a lot of subdivisions here. We are displacement real geometry. This is not a trick of the texture. This is real geometry, and it takes a lot of time to render it. Right? Once it's calculated, you can see that we have a shit because we didn't set up the light. Alright, man, alright. Let me just set up the light a little. Just activate some environment lighting. And probably for this first test, let's decrease these subdivisions a lot. so it's a little faster to see what we are doing. Right, so we have something like that. Okay, let's play with this until we get it right, and then we keep playing with the displacement. Let's go to here, activate ambient occlusion, and instead of add, put multiply. Right. What this will do is, instead of taking the brighter parts and add them to the color so everything is whiter, it will take the black parts and put them, you know, like darker, if that makes any sense. Alright, so let's put this light more clearly right here, for example, and let's decrease this light like 0.5 a lot. Sorry, and this one increase it a lot, and let's try now. Okay, this is getting closer to what we need, sadly. Okay, and we can even put this right here. Right, there we go. Okay, what if we make this sunlight pointing to the spaceship like that and like that? Okay, so it's a directional light. Okay, I like this one better. Okay, now change a little the color. Let's start playing with that. Something a little orangey like. Also, I want the sky to look like during the dawn or something. Send it color. Something like that could be. Let's try. Alright. Better. Better. You're getting it. So let's go to the environment, light, and let's pick the sky texture. No, sky color. Let's see what happens. Okay. It's not very cool. So, okay, let's go ahead with this one. And probably we can later keep playing a little with lighting and all that, because I would render this one in cycles, but in cycles to get the mist effect can be a little tricky, and there is a problem with the C buffer. That is the one that I use. I used to use it for the mist effects, and in cycles for now it gets jaggy edges and so on. So and as this is a pretty simple scene in the render, I mean, it's just not something that you need a lot of indirect light or whatever, and it's, if you need it, it's easy to fake it, because it's only a flying object in the sky, so it's easy to fake it. So this one we're gonna render it with Blender internal, because cycles just will take more time. It's pretty is a little more complex, and with the Blender internal we'll do it okay, and it will be easier. So let's now increase that stuff like this. Let's save it again and just press render. I'm gonna then speed up this part. Okay, this is not bad, huh? It's looking pretty nice. Okay, let's play a little just to try it. Here, increase a little the strength, just a little. Right, to 0.1 for example. And let's try again. Okay, I kind of like this one. Alright, so I'm gonna save the scene. Now we're gonna start playing with the materials. I can already hide this one. We don't need any more of the texture there. Let's get a bit closer. Let's focus this one. Okay, and now let's play a little with the material. What I want to do here is to plug the GLSL, and let's go to the texture mode. Okay, Well, another thing here I forgot to tell you, don't try to get the smooth one here, because otherwise, as we are using the squared shapes for the displacement, if we smooth them, we are gonna lose a lot of detail, alright? It's better if we keep them flat, like this, okay? So this way we will have more like rigid edges in the shapes, okay? So we have this one. Let me just think about the material. So spaceship material. Okay. So I know that I want something a little dark. Okay, a little dark. Something kind of gray. Okay. Not much color because I wanted to pick a little the color of the sky and the light. Okay. So a gray color is nice. Now the specularity. I want it to be the specularity a little yellowish, a little like the sky already, like, you know, like it's the sunset or something is reflecting on it. So I want it that way. And also, let me think, we need this light to be a little, okay, like this, more exaggerated, like this. Notice that I rotated it into the z-axis from here, okay? Something like this. So we get this shadow more pronounced, and we get here this bright more in the border of the shape, okay? It gives a little more contrast to the rest of the spaceship. All right, so we get that. Now select this one again. And what I want, actually, let's save this. You notice that I saved very usually, but it's the way to go, because otherwise when we are working with a lot of polygons and that, is easy that Blender probably, well, it's not easy, but Blender can crash, or your computer or whatever, so it's better to save often. So I wanted to activate the mirror, and there's a lot of time, and I don't use the Blender internal, so well, let's increase this one. Let's go up so we can see a little the effect that we are getting, right? The reflection, maybe add a little Fresnel. All right, so that way, and the reflectivity, right? Let's increase the specularity. Yep. The hardness, yeah, increase the hardness, because this is a, if we want to mimic metal, we need to increase the hardness. So not all displace is bright, just the parts that are very, very perpendicular to the light. Right, so save it and take another render. Okay, so this is not exactly what I'm looking for, right? This looks like plastic or something like that. I need it to be darker, a lot darker. Something like this probably. Okay, the hardness, decrease it so we get more bright there, more bright shape there. And we want to go here to the environment lighting and decrease this kind of to 0.3 probably. Yes, and just right. And now actually for this test renders, we can just decrease these settings, right? So we get something approximate, but it doesn't take too much time, because otherwise we are wasting like the half of the seconds it takes to render. So let's try again. As you can see, now it's much faster. Okay, so something like this is much more like what I want to achieve. Okay, and also the reflection, as you can see, is taking part of the color from the sky, which is exactly what I want. Okay, now let's just go ahead, and the sun, just keep rotating it, so I want it there, and something like this probably. And I want to increase the energy of the sun. That's right. Also the samples, we want to increase the samples a little, and the soft size will be like 3. Let's try with these parameters. Alright, now let's go ahead and here increase a little, make it not so dark. What the soft size of the soft shadows do is that they are not too rigid, alright, and this is not quite what I want. Let's decrease this one even more, 0.1. Don't fear to take it to streams, because you're always on time to get it right. Alright, so this is kind of what we are looking for, but it's not, we need more light around here. So what I'm gonna do actually is to start playing with lights. Okay, we want, for example, this part here to be a little brighter, okay, and we want this to be a lot brighter, so we have more light over here, because otherwise it's very, very dark. So start play with it. Put it like this, for example, rotate it like this into the z-axis, and okay, this is looking better, right, because we have more bright parts here. And what I'm gonna do now is to create a couple of emilites. An emilite is a light that, just rotate it 180 like this, and with this we can just illuminate the bottom of the object, right? So I can go here and let's see that the earth will be something like brownish, right? Something like this, a little darker probably, something like this could be, right? And just decrease the energy, all right, and just illuminate it very, very slightly, right? Like 0.1, okay, and maybe do it more brownish, orange, like something like that, right? And I'm gonna duplicate this one and rotate it towards the spaceship, something like that, right? The emilites are also directional, so they don't depend. The point lights are in a point, which means that if you have an object here, it will take some perspective of the light, because all the light is coming from one point. Emilites are affecting the whole scene from this area, and they don't have even a shadow. They are just lights made for filling, all right, for fill dark areas. And the sun, which is great about this kind of sun, is that it's a light very directional. Well, not very, it's directional or it's not directional. So it's just directional, so it means that it hasn't perspective, all right? The light is coming anywhere in the scene. You add an object, the light is coming from that direction, all right? So that is what we want. So this area, this light here, we want it to be bluish, to give it like sensation of the sky or something like that. Maybe even something a little violet, something like this. Okay, and now rotate this one so it affects only the borders here and the darker parts here. And let's take a render. Right, so these things that we are doing are very, very, very slight, but they are adding some kind of effect. Let's increase a little this light, like this. And let's make this like, for example, let's say less reflection, less reflectivity. Let's try it out. So you can see we have some areas here, a little magenta, violet. This top part is being blue because of the reflectivity from the sky, and this part is pretty bright. We want more bright into this part, more shininess here. So let's go for it. and make the general stuff darker. This is, as you can see, this is a matter of playing a lot with this. Cycles is very handy for this stuff, because you don't need to render and keep trying, because you get everything on real-time feedback in the viewport. But well, we are doing it with Blender Internal this time, and Blender Internal is very powerful still on these days. So it's okay. Right, let's decrease the reflectivity even more. Just put it on 0.1 for example. Alright. I want more brightness here, so increase this light. Take another render. Alright. Let's play a little more with these lights here. Just increase the effect and make them darker. Okay. And now just to try it out, sorry, we could just add a texture here. It will be the displace. And this texture, we are gonna use it on, instead of generated on Uvs, and it's gonna bring, let's try it in color to see what happens. This looks kind of better, right? What this does is that it makes, as we are using the displacement texture for the color one, for the color channel, we are having the areas that are higher, they are in a brighter color, and the areas that are more pulled to the middle of the structure, they are darker. So this gives a little variation to the color, which is probably what we are looking for. And let's try to apply this same texture to the reflectivity. Let's see what happens. So probably what we need is some kind of variation. It's not bad, just decrease a little the maximum amount of reflectivity that we have here. Alright, what we can do now is to probably turn this a little darker, sorry, and just decrease this texture, and decreasing this the color channel, we probably get a darker material. Alright, this is more like what we want. Okay, now just let me try in the specularity. Let's see what happens. Just playing with the textures. This part of the project is always about playing with the stuff until we get something that we like. All right. So at this point, I think I kind of like it. Let's try the full render. 0.5. Let's try to make a full render with all the subdivisions in place. Okay, as you can see, this one took a lot of time rendering, because I think I just messed it here, adding like 5 subdivisions. It's a lot. This is a lot. So what I'm gonna do now is to set the scene for the compositing, right? So then in the compositing, we are gonna make this fit a little more the color with the sky and everything, and we are gonna add the mist effect and so on. One thing that I want to achieve in this scene is the mist effect, alright? I want this part here to be like occluded by the sky, which is some kind of fog effect or mist, because this way we will give the scene a lot of depth and make this object feel like it's a really big object, right, in the sky. So I'm gonna show you how to use the mist in Blender. I want to tell you what it does, and then we are gonna deactivate it. And I know it sounds a little stupid, but what we want to do that because we want to set it up here but then be able to control it in the compositing, so we can control the amount of mist at our own will in the compositing, which is much more effective. All right, so I'm gonna activate here the mist, and what the mist does is here we set a distance for the starting point of the mist, which I'm gonna put on 0, for example. All right, or even like 2 maybe. All right, and as you can see, the camera is like, from the top is like maybe 4 squares or of the grid, right? So here, instead of 25, I'm gonna put like 4.5, maybe 4 only. All right, I don't know what happened there. Okay, it's affecting also in the viewport. I didn't know that actually. It's pretty nice. Okay, so now what it's doing, it's showing us the mist effect in the viewport. Wow, this is nice. Okay, so here in the viewport, we are watching the effect, and it's adding some kind of mist, right? You can see that if I increase the depth, we see the object better, but if I decrease it, we can even not see the object at all, right? Only this part and only a little. So let's put it on 4, okay? And if we take a render, just let me make sure that we are not playing with the subdivisions here. All right, 3 and 3. That's nice. So there we go. Let's take a quick render. And I'm gonna explain to you what the mist effect does to our scene, so we can control it later on the compositing. Alright, as you can see, we have a lot more depth in the scene, and it feels like a bigger object because we have like clouds or whatever in the middle of the object. This part is obviously closer to us, but this part is really far from us. So it gives the sensation of something really big. Alright, so what this is doing actually is, if we show the alpha, you can see that this part is almost solid, while this part is completely transparent. This actually, the mist actually make the object, the grade itself with an alpha into the sky color. All right, so we got this object to be partially transparent in the part that is farther from us. All right, so instead of this, now we have it set up. All right. I'm gonna even control a little the starting point, so this part from here is more solid. All right, once we have it set up, it's very easy from the compositor to play with it, right? And it's also much more effective because from the compositor we can set it up in real time in the final image. All right, so this is more like what I want, right? So once we have this, I'm gonna set up the scene so we can start playing with the compositor. So let's save the scene again, 6, and of course turn off the mist. Now we have to go here, and we need to start playing with the layers, the render layers. So our spaceship, lights and everything are on the layer 1, which is the only visible. Here is the only one visible in the whole scene. Alright, so instead of render layer, we are gonna call this spaceship. From the spaceship we need several channels. Alright, here we can control the channels that we receive in the compositor from these render layers. So I need from this, let's check. I don't want the sky on this one, I just want the spaceship. All right, and I want, let me check, I want the specular. If we click here, we get the specular separated from the diffuse, but I want it to be completely combined because the C channel, we don't need it at all, so I'm gonna disable it. We want the mist activated because the mist is what we are gonna take to make the transparency there. And the specular, I want it, even it will be in the combined scene, I want it by separate to then just boost it to have here some kind of shine, more more accentuated. All right, so there it is, the first render layer. Now we need another render layer, which will be called sky, and in this one we only want the sky. So I'm gonna take a layer that I'm sure that I have nothing into, like the last one, right? Sorry, this is the scene. I just want this one here. Okay, I in fact want the sky. I don't want sea, but I want this combined, so I get the sky on it. And I think I'm ready to go. Just put here the final resolution, which will be 1280 by 720. Put it on 100%. And let me check that I have everything. I think it's everything. Okay, so I'm gonna select this object. Let's go here. Just increase this one a little. Save the scene again. I save a lot, I know. And I'm gonna take a render with all this setup done, so we get the image in which we are gonna work in the compositor. Okay, it's done. The reason why it's showing here only the sky is because the active layer I have selected here is the sky. Alright, if we selected the spaceship, would be the other one. Let me show here, combined, whatever, specular. Well, actually, I don't know what's happening here, but I don't care. Ah, okay, here it is working. I don't know why it didn't work before. Okay, so here we have the spaceship. As you can see, only the spaceship has been rendered, the rest is completely transparent. And in the other hand, we have the sky, only the sky. So now we can use the mist effect to include the spaceship as we want over the sky, right, and fuse them together independently, right? So let's go to the compositor, node editor, there we go, activate use nodes. Instead of the nodes, I actually here deactivate this one. Yeah, it's not this, it's these ones here from the compositor, use nodes. If you have this error, be careful, because if you render the scene again, you will get a black spaceship, right? Because you activated the nodes and you have nothing set up on them from this material. So instead, I'm just using the nodes here from the compositor, and now actually I can make the compositor work at full screen, and I'm just adding here output viewer. Alright, so now we can see what we are doing. And once you have a viewer in the scene, if you press Ctrl Shift and left click in any node, you will see that node in the view. Alright, it will just join the node in which you clicked to the viewer. And how to view the viewer? Alright, you can use another area with the UV image editor to see it, but what I like to do is to activate here the backdrop, so you can watch what you're doing behind the nodes, which is pretty useful. Right, so here, as you can see, I have the spaceship. Alright, so let's save the scene. Maybe I saved too much, that's true. And let's go for it. So first, we have the spaceship, we need to mix it with the sky. So we create another input, render layers, there we go. And instead of a spaceship here, we select the sky. Here's where we select the render layer that we want. So we select the sky. Even we don't see anything here. If we don't see anything, it's because the sky usually is treated as an alpha in Blender, alright? But if we plug this to the viewer, we can see the sky. Alright, we plug it, of course, with Ctrl Shift and left click. You can see that automatically this node is linked to the viewer. Very, very fast to see the effect of any node in our tree. Alright, when you have a lot of nodes, you'll find it very, very useful. Alright, so let's get started. We need here a color mix, and we're gonna mix these two images here. Alright, this one the spaceship will be on the top and the sky will be on the bottom. And we have this because we have the factoring 1. The factor 1 shows the image on top. Even here you see it in the bottom, which this means is that this is the first image that enters and this image is the second one. So the second one is on top of the first one. It's probably a little confusing, but is how it works, and once you understand it, it's very easy because you know that the image the second image is the one that is on the top. So 0 is the sky and 1 is the spaceship. All right. Instead of this, what we want to do now is to mix these two images using the mist. And if you press shift control click here several times, you can see the different channels. All right. So we need to plug the mist here. And what this will do is to use this grayscale to mix the sky with the spaceship. The white areas in this image will be completely opaque for the spaceship, and the ones that have something gray or black will be transparent. Alright, so this area here will let us see the sky behind the spaceship. Let's try it out. There you have it. Alright, so now how we can control this very easily from the compositor, so we can control the mist effect. Right, this is very easy. We add an RGB curves here, we plug the mist here to the image, and this goes to the factor. All right, so in the middle of the mist and the factor here, which is where we need to plug the mist, we have this object here to control it, and you can see that by controlling this this single curve, we can control how many black there is in that scene. This is the contrast mainly, right? So if we do this, we have less or more contrast, or as we want. You can control it. Right there you have more contrast. Right, so let's delete that point. Let's put it like this, and if we show this, you can see that we can easily control the amount of mist that we have in the scene. So even we can animate this node to animate this curve, and this will make, we can do it from here, start increasing the amount of mist that we have, and make the object look like it's getting closer to us. Right. So for now, I'm gonna make it like this, something probably like this. All right. So we have some mist, but not too much. Okay, so we already have the mist. Now, what is the next step for this? I'll tell you. The next step is make some color corrections. Right, so I would like to correct a little the sky, just to play a little with it. Right, so I can get it more bluish, increase a little the red. Okay, something like this to make it more pink, like so it's more like in the dawn. All right, and now we can also plug some RGB curves right here. Well, remember that I'm creating the nodes right here just by Shift A, just as for creating planes or meshes in the viewport, in the 3D viewport. All right, and from here we can create any kind of node. Right, otherwise you can go here to add and go from here, or you can go from here and okay, this is just my fail. You can't add it from here. This is from the 3D viewport only, so you can add it from here. That's nice. Some little tricks here. Okay, you can press M if you want to see the effect of a node. You can press M and you will mute it. You will see that from the input to the output you get a red line, which means that this node is not taken in account. It's not being taken in account. Right, so for example, we can mute this one and we can see the sky with and without the effect. So it's a quick way of for making some comparisons between what the changes that we are doing in the compositing. All right, so now let's play a little with these curves. Let's add a little blue to it. All right, something blue, Let's probably decrease a little the red so we get it more blue, maybe increase it, play with it. Right, this is a lot of, as I said, always a matter of play with it until you get something that you like. Right, this can be something interesting. Alright, then of course you can play with this a lot, and after the mix, just let me add it right here so we can see it in the viewer. Actually the composite, I always put it apart from the scene, so it's just a node that you need at the end of all the process, and the final node, you just plug it there, and this is the result you get from the final render. Okay, but I usually get it apart because otherwise you have, for example, something like this, and this line is always in the way of the area where you're working. So I prefer to have it apart and just plug it in at the end of the compositing work. So we have this. Now let's just play with it a little. I love these nodes. They give you a lot of control over the final look of the scene, and you can see that just by changing a little the colors, you can get a different time of the day completely, and it's lovely. Give it a little more contrast. Not too much. Alright, something like this is probably what I want. Okay, and now just a final step. You remember that before I told you something about these shines here? Okay, so this is the point when we play with them. So I'm just gonna add here an RGB curves. Alright. And I'm gonna plug this specular right here in the image input of the RGB curves. And if we see this, here we are just getting the specularity of the material, right? Because it's a separate channel of the specular light. So when we have here, we can just increase the contrast so we get only the brighter parts of it, like something like this. And now what I want to do with this is, you can do several things, like go to filter, and I usually use glare. You can probably use also a blur. Alright, in this case I think I probably will use a directional blur. Okay, let me play with it. First I'm gonna add a glare and just show you what I want to do. Right, so here you have more or less the effect. Instead of a strays, I want probably a fog glow. Alright, so it's like a foggy glow. If you decrease the threshold, you increase the effect. Right, the threshold just takes the, like the contrast of the image, and the more you approach to 0, it takes only the brighter parts of the image to make them a lot brighter. Right, so the less the more you decrease the threshold, the more brighter the bright parts are, and the less brighter the dark parts are, of course. So now we have this, we just need a color mix. Okay, now it's everything white because we have this white color at in the second input, and the factor is 1. So I need to input this here and input this right here. Let the factor in 1, but instead of mix, I just pick add. Alright, and as you can see now, right, if we plug this, we have the very rigid shines here, but if we plug this one, we get a more shiny ones. Alright, so this is exactly what I was looking for. We can even play a little more with this. We can take that once and add probably a Let me check filter, directional blur, plug this into it, there we go, and I want to increase it in the x-axis, like 1 for example, distance, wow, let me just see what is happening here. Okay, this is not what I was looking for. Actually, it wasn't. It's a blur. Let me check it. Yes, it's a blur. But what we are going to do with this blur is just use it in the x-axis to something like 5 probably. Increase it a lot. Okay, maybe something like this. And also duplicate this channel here, plug this one here, and plug this one here. So what we are doing now is first we mix this scene with the first glare that we did. And here we mix this scene with the first glare with the second directional blur, alright? So maybe I would need to increase this a lot more. Something like that. Okay, so we get that effect. Of course, here we can play with the factor to decrease that effect. And here I can play also with the factor to decrease or even increase the brightness here, alright? But I think that with probably 2 we are done. Maybe with 1.5 we are more than done. Alright. Alright, so I think we are done with this scene. So finally what we need to do is to just take this one and plug it to the composite. So now if we press the render button, it will render this node here. Right, and what we will get is just this image. So we finally make the final save. Alright. Let's go out from this full screen and let's now let me take a look. Layers, maybe we can increase the anti-aliasing now that we made it. If we activate here full sample, we probably get a better result, right? Because what this does, the full sample, is that instead of making an anti-alias pass of every pass in the render, what it does is to make all the compositing without anti-aliasing and apply an anti-alias to the final composited image. So probably we increase the quality of some stuff like this. But here my feeling is that these little speckles, let me just, well, this is a little trick. It's not a trick, it's something usual, but if you are not used to do it, probably you don't know it. If you press V and Alt V in the keyboard, on the compositor view, you can zoom in or out the final, the backdrop. And if you press Shift and middle mouse button, well, Alt and middle mouse button, instead of panning the composite view with the nodes with the middle mouse button, if you press Alt in the meanwhile, you will slide through the final composite backdrop. So here you can see these kind of errors here. This is because these are some very little lines shining, and also probably the displacement there has some polygons a little displaced, it's very little stuff. So probably the final render that I will do will be like full HD. What the fuck, full HD. And also I'm gonna increase this one to 5, right? Yeah, I feel confident right here. Alright, here there is one thing that we need to note. If we want to make the render bigger, like I just did here, probably it will happen that with this horizontal blur that I just applied, it will be shorter than the full size of the image. So what we need to do is to increase the size of it, or just put a relative one and make it on like 100%, right? So the 100% will be the 100% of the width of the image, all right? It won't depend on the size, but if we don't make it relative, it will depend on the size. And of course, if this was like 1200, if we use these measures here, it will be shorter than the final image. So something just to keep in mind. And I think I'm getting very long with this tutorial, so I will just make the final render and then make the goodbye part of the tutorials and say the happy blending stuff and blah blah blah. So let's make the final render. Save it. Let's make the final render with F12. Okay, here just notice a thing, and is that it's only showing the spaceship even if it finished the render, and it's because before I was just messing around with this shit. So I just need to turn back to, now I have the sky, the spaceship, and the composite with it, which is the output node of the composite nodes. So if we activate it, we have the final render, which is the full HD render. It's very cool, and we could have this animated. Actually, for the final video, what I did was to make it rotate around the z-axis very slowly, so it gives the impression of something really big. All right, so okay, this is everything. I hope you learned a lot from this tutorial, from the compositing and from some Blender techniques, the displacement techniques. Thanks to Michalis Cesium to let me do a tutorial from his technique that he shared on blenderartist.org. You can find the thread, a link to the thread in the Blendtuts post of this video, or under the videos in YouTube and Vimeo. So well, thanks for watching. I hope you learned a lot, and see you soon. Happy blending.